I sing a story or you sing a rhyme, it's as though I've heard it for the very first time.
Welcome to part 2 of NeoBlisseyX versus Sing Me a Story with Belle. In part 1, we took a brief look at the basics of the series, how it was created by Disney to provide a higher quality of animation than other shows of its type by using classic animated short subjects, how it was created to ensure that Disney, and more importantly the stations that would air the series, would adhere to the then incoming Educational Informational Television Content Mandate from the American Federal Communications Commission, a brief overview of the show's characters, and a brief look at the post-series career of arguably the most successful alumnus of the show's child cast, current General Hospital actress Kirsten Storms. In part 2, we shall examine in greater detail a typical episode of the series, broken down into 4 segments, excluding the main and ending title sequences and the book list. We will also address some additional information I have discovered about the series in the time since part 1 was released, including corrections to information presented in Part 1's narration. For example, in Part 1, I described Sing Me a Story as only having 26 half-hour episodes over 2 seasons, running from the week of September 8, 1995 to the week of March 1, 1997. However, the series page on the Disney Wiki, link in the description, lists the series as having 65 episodes over 4 seasons, and running from the week of September 8th, 1995 to the week of December 11th, 1999. Presumably, the 65-episode, 4-season count takes into consideration a complete re-rotation of the original 26 episodes. I can only assume that this information is what is meant to be accurate, as while I lived in Tucson, Arizona for 6 months from March to September of 1998, over a year after Wikipedia says that the series ended, a local station was still airing the series. Therefore, for the purposes of this installment, I will primarily use the information on the Disney Wiki, except in cases where I will use Wikipedia information to show what that site says. For the purposes of this video, I will use the episode Problem-Solving Ingenuity, which featured some of the important milestones I mentioned in Part 1. These will be discussed as we go along. The Disney Wiki lists Problem-Solving Ingenuity as being the 21st episode of the series, with an air date being the week of January 25th, 1997. As mentioned in Part 1, Problem-Solving Ingenuity is one of the few episodes whose animated short telling the story was not taken from a Silly Symphony short. Instead, the episode used a modified version of the Mickey and the Beanstalk segment of the 1947 live-action animation hybrid package feature film Fun and Fancy Free. The short is also notable for being one of the rare instances, as also mentioned in Part 1, of all 3 of Disney's big 3 characters, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy, being in a short used on the show. For the short, as used on Sing Me a Story, the original voices of the characters were replaced. Mickey Mouse, as originally voiced in the Fun and Fancy Free version of Mickey and the Beanstalk by Walt Disney himself, in one of his final performances as Mickey before handing the role over to Jimmy McDonald later that same year, was now voiced by the late Wayne Allwine, who was the official voice of Mickey at the time Sing Me a Story was on the air. Donald Duck, who was voiced by Clarence Ducky Nash at the time of Fun and Fancy Free's release, was now voiced by Tony Anselmo, who has been the officially recognized voice of Donald since Nash's death in 1985. Goofy, who was voiced by Pinto Colvig at the time of Fun and Fancy Free's release, was now voiced by Bill Farmer, who has been the officially recognized voice of Goofy since 1987. Willie the Giant, who was voiced by Billy Gilbert at the time of Fun and Fancy Free's release, was now voiced by Will Ryan, who was the official voice of the character from 1983 to his death in 2021. Ryan, as Willie, even got to do the reading of the book list at the end of the episode, as we'll see later. The cast list for Sing Me a Story on Wikipedia does not list a replacement actress for the character of the Golden Harp, voiced in Fun and Fancy Free by Anita Gordon. However, upon close examination of a scene where Mickey talks to the harp, I believe I can identify with certainty the replacement voice actress. We'll come back to this later as well. One could conceivably break down a regular episode of Sing Me a Story into 4 distinct parts, not counting the opening and ending title sequences and the book list. Those parts are the teaser, or the short sequence just after the opening titles but before the first commercial break. The teaser often sets up the main story of the episode. The problem, the sequence just after the first commercial break that expands upon any story beats introduced in the teaser while often adding a secondary problem, primarily involving one of the child characters. The story, where any combination of Belle, Big Book, Harmony, Lewis, Carol, or in rare instances a guest character, tells a story or stories, shown to the viewer by the animated segments, that is related to the problem or problems introduced in the teaser and/or problem segments. Often the story is interrupted for discussions of the situation in the story and how it relates to any problems in play, and the resolution, the segment after the story or stories are told where the problem or problems from the teaser/problem are resolved. The resolution sometimes stretches across segments going into and coming out of commercial breaks. Let's take an up-close look at problem-solving ingenuity and examine how the episode handles each of these 4 parts. Here we see Belle fixing what appears to be a cello. Keep this in mind as we proceed. While Harmony gives a painful meow. He says that he is hungry. Belle promises to feed Harmony when she is done with fixing the cello. Lewis and Carol then interrupt, asking when Belle is going to tell a story they can sing for. Belle confesses that with the way things are going with the cello, there could not even be a story told today. Carol refers to this as a big problem. Here, Kirsten, yes, that Kirsten, walks into the bookshop, a dejected look on her face. Kirsten starts to ask for help, but Belle, still working on the cello, interrupts her, saying that the unknown person who dropped off the cello that morning wants Belle to try and fix it as soon as possible. Disappointed, Kirsten walks over to where some of the other kids are reading next to Big Book, who says to Kirsten that Belle is not the only being in the bookshop that could help Kirsten with her problem. In response, Kirsten tells Big Book that she lost her favorite and lucky baseball cap and feels bad as a result. In response, Big Book mentions that he recalled a story that could help Kirsten solve her problem, about an entire town that lost something very important to them, and how the citizens of the town had to find a way to solve their problem. It is here that the story of Mickey and the Beanstalk begins. If you've ever heard the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, then you'll have the basic knowledge of how Mickey and the Beanstalk goes, so I won't go into too much detail in that regard. I will, however, show you one of the interruptions where problems in the bookshop are discussed, specifically this example, where after Mickey, Donald, and Goofy find the golden harp in Willie the Giant's locked treasure box, the harp tells Mickey that she was captured by the giant.
How'd you get here?
I was kidnapped by that wicked giant.
Oh, a giant?
Giant? I guess that explains why all that food was so big.
But at least they weren't hungry anymore. They solved that problem, just not when they thought they would.
That's right. Sometimes solutions come when you least expect them, which gives me hope for the problem I'm having with this cello.
It is also here where we can confirm the identity of who I think is the Golden Harp's replacement voice actress, Lindsay McLeod, Belle herself. Once the story is done, one of the children, Hampton, remembers that he had half of a tuna sandwich in his lunchbox and gives it to Harmony. Looking on, Kirsten wishes that someone could solve her problem. After the episode's final commercial break, we see that Harmony is enjoying the tuna sandwich that Hampton gave him. Lewis and Carol have been able to sing a song during the telling of a story, and that Belle has finally fixed the cello. All problems solved, right? Wrong. As Big Book points out to Belle that someone's problem, namely Kirsten's, has still not been solved. We then see Belle walk up to Kirsten, a collection of caps hidden behind her back. After Kirsten reminds Belle of her situation and of not wanting to bug Belle while she was trying to fix the cello, Belle presents Kirsten with the cap collection for her to choose a, hopefully, temporary replacement from. With Kirsten's problem finally solved, Belle then again wonders who dropped the cello and when they're coming back to pick it up. Suddenly, the bookshop starts to shake, and, to the astonishment of everyone in the bookshop, the roof is lifted off to reveal Willie the Giant from the Mickey and the Beanstalk story. In a Sing Me a Story-style reenactment of the end of many other presentations of Mickey and the Beanstalk, where Willie lifts up the roof of a building to inquire something of someone, Willie asks Belle if she was able to fix his teensy-weensy fiddle. Belle, who thought that the fiddle was a cello, remember how, in the actual story, the food in Willie's castle, which was normal size to him, was huge to Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, returns the fiddle to Willie. After he leaves, Belle laments that she has one last big problem to resolve: fixing the roof from Willie's visit. Although I do not consider the book list to be a proper segment, I wanted to address the problem-solving Ingenuity version. Here, Big Book turns the proceedings over to Willie, who gives the 3 books for the episode. Which leaves us with an important question. How can you legally watch Sing Me a Story with Belle today? Well, the options are few, and possibly rare and/or expensive. In 1996, while Sing Me a Story was in production, the series was added to the Disney Princess Collection VHS series. This series of releases took episodes from the Aladdin and Little Mermaid television series and placed 2 episodes of each series on each videocassette, focusing on that series' princess. In total, 4 videotapes were released under the banner Jasmine's Enchanted Tales, 2 under the banner Ariel's Songs and Stories, and 2 under the banner Belle's Sing Me a Story. They were Beauty and the World of Music, featuring the episodes Steady Effort and Wonderful World of Music, and Chapters of Enchantment, featuring the episodes Taking Responsibility and Stick to It, Don't Give Up. As mentioned in Part 1, the 1999 direct-to-video film Belle's Tales of Friendship was comprised of 2 episodes of Sing Me a Story, combined with the Mrs. Potts' Party sequence, which again was intended for an unsold Beauty and the Beast animated series akin to the Aladdin and Little Mermaid series mentioned earlier, as well as additional framing segments with Belle, Lewis, and Carol. Those episodes were Working Together and Reap What You Sow. Coincidentally, Reap What You Sow featured the 1932 silly symphony The Wise Little Hen, which was the first cartoon to feature Donald Duck. The 2011 and 2016 releases of Beauty and the Beast: The Enchanted Christmas and Beauty and the Beast: Belle's Magical World Special Edition, the version that featured the Mrs. Potts' Party sequence from Belle's Tales of Friendship, each had a single episode of the series as a bonus feature. The Enchanted Christmas had the episode Stick to It, Don't Give Up, while Belle's Magical World featured the episode What's Inside Counts. What's Inside Counts is unique because it was one of a few episodes of the series to feature live-action versions of characters from the original Beauty and the Beast animated film. In this case, Gaston. I hope I've done my late mother proud in producing these videos, and that you, the viewer, have enjoyed them. In my own small way, I feel I've done my part in keeping the legacy of Sing Me a Story with Belle alive and bringing it into the future. Until next time, this is NeoBlisseyX signing off. Take care, and live long and prosper.